Hello everybody, my name's Nick and welcome to Book Talk, where today we're taking a look at The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Wyndham, however you say it. So this is one of those legendary books that I find a lot of people haven't actually read, including myself until recently. It's a book that I've been meaning to read for years upon years, but I just haven't got around to. And I'm so glad I managed to get around to reading it because it's so good. Although the title is kind of misleading, being that the book's not so much about the Triffids as much as the Triffids are just a consequence of something else that happens. So, the book starts with the character Bill in hospital, and it goes into quite a bit of detail and spends a lot of time with him just being in hospital, like recovering. But the thing is, he used to work, or at least he worked at the time, with Triffids, these giant semi-sentient plants which can literally pull themselves up out the ground and walk around on their roots if they wanted to, who have got these big long tentacular like arms, trunks, stems, whatever you want to call them, and they've got kind of like a poisonous barb on the end, or at least like a flat type hand. And working with them, Bill got hit in the face, and the Triffids somehow know where people's eyes are and tend to go for the eyes, and he got partially blinded because of it. Luckily he didn't get a full smack, because otherwise he would have been permanently blinded. As it was though, he just went to hospital, had his eyes wrapped up for a few days or weeks, and then he would have been fine. During the time he was in hospital, however, there was an astronomical event, a kind of comet that passed by Earth, which created a blinding effect. And because it was like a major astronomical event, everyone was watching it. And the spectacle of it blinded anyone who saw it. So now you've got most of the world blind. And that's primarily where the story lies in this book. So you have Bill, he wakes up in hospital the day after the astronomical event, and he's kind of jealous because everybody else got to see this once in a lifetime event and he couldn't. But then after a while of waiting for like his breakfast and stuff, he starts to get suspicious. So he starts to kind of like go out, and he goes to his door and tries to shout and stuff, and then he hears like everybody else in the hospital, the patients, kind of like crying back in anguish. And then he eventually like takes the plunge and tries to take off his bandages, because he was meant to be having the bandages off that day anyway, conveniently. And he can see, he's fine. But then he goes out and he sees that everything is royally boned. He sees like, he tries to go downstairs and he sees a mass of people in the lobby of the hospital, and it becomes quickly apparent that none of them can see. And so he kind of weaves his way around them, and the first place he goes, this book being based in England, is the pub. So yeah, he ends up in the pub during the end of the world, because where else are you gonna go? And he's there like having a drink and everything, and the bar owner comes around and he finds out a little bit more what's going on. But he just kind of weaves around London and tries to put together what's going on, until he finds this guy who's using this woman, like he's got her on a chain or whatever, to guide him, and she can see. And it's quickly coming to the point where people who can still see for whatever reason, whether they just missed the astronomical event or like Bill, they were bandaged up or whatever, become commodities to the blind so that they can be guided. And so yeah, Bill decks this guy out and he saves the woman, and they go to, I think it's her father's house to kind of hide out in. And up to this point there's been very little discussion about Triffids themselves. Now when they get to the house, they're kind of ambushed by a couple of Triffids just hiding in the hedges, and it becomes apparent that her family's being killed by the Triffids. But again, they're not that much of a threat thus far. It is mainly the fact that people are blind, and the blind are kind of enslaving the seeing. And then they see at night a rally point, and so the next day they go to this rally point, and it's the seeing people, and they plan to leave London, and they go on trips to try and get supplies from around the city. And Bill and this woman Josella end up getting captured and kind of enslaved again, and they have to spend the next few days or weeks basically trying to find supplies and help the blind people survive. And still, there's not been that much discussion about the Triffids. They said about how there's Triffids in like Hyde Park and everything, but they're all chained up, and how that the Triffids might slowly infiltrate into the city. But so far, there's not a great deal about them, until inevitably Bill escapes and he goes looking for Josella, but can't find her, so he goes back to the people who are escaping the city, and he ends up leaving the city. And it's not until getting out of the city where the Triffids become more of a problem, because he's going through the countryside and there's more Triffids out there and they're more of a danger, as you might expect. Now, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but eventually he ends up kind of settling down on this farm and building a big fence around it, and then the Triffids just keep coming. And it's now that the Triffids really start to become the problem. It's like civilization falls, and these are the things that are trying to take over. And they're effectively akin to the zombies in The Walking Dead. And I've said before how the zombies in The Walking Dead could be replaced with just about anything that is like threatening, and it would still work. Because it's not about the zombies, it's about the people and how the people are surviving. And that's what Day of the Triffids is really about. I guess that's why I like it, because I really like that dynamic. It's just that in this book, the threat is kind of split into two. You have the original instigating factor, which is the comet, and then you have the ongoing threat, the growing threat, which is the Triffids. And eventually the Triffids get to such a point where they're trying to overwhelm his farm, and he's found out about a place that he can escape to. And yeah, the book doesn't end like with, oh, triumphant note. It ends with kind of the story continues, so much to the extent that if it was written or made into a film or whatever these days, then actually I think there was a film. There would be a sequel. There would be absolutely room for a sequel, and honestly, I wouldn't mind to see a sequel, because it ends with them kind of saying, we're going to fight back against the Triffids, and they're going to the Isle of Wight, or I think it's the Isle of Wight, and they're going to clear it of Triffids, but then they've got the seeds of the Triffids, so it's always going to be an ongoing thing. But yeah, it's just, I would like to see more of Bill's story and how he tried to eke out an existence in this world that is basically being reconsumed by nature, aggressive nature, which I guess the Triffids embody. So I'm aware I gave away probably more than too much of the book, but I would still say it's absolutely well worth a read. And there's a reason why it's a classic, because it's got everything. And the pacing, I have a problem with the pacing of a lot of books, but the pacing in this one is perfect. You've got the highs, you've got the lows, you've got the action, you've got the sullen character moments, and it just works for me. And I think it quickly became one of my favorite books, I suppose. So yeah, if you have a chance to read it, definitely read it. Anyways, my name's Nick. If you liked the video, then please subscribe, and if you want me to take a look at any specific books, then just drop them down in the comments. With that said, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.